What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy and welcome to another FPL video, and today I'm taking a look back at the FPL 2018-19 season. I know at this point FPL's finished for that season, no one really cares. And I also did a live stream, but that kind of went a little bit wrong and I'm not quite happy how it came out. And I know some people prefer the shorter video and obviously it can be concise about what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go through my final week, where I ended up, FPL Player of the Season, lessons learned, and then take a quick look back at the predictions I made at the start of the season. So let's jump straight into it. So taking a look back at the final game week 38, I scored 76 points but took a 4-point hit. So it was 72 altogether. My moves were Wilson in, Sterling in, and Redmond in. So I took out Ericsson, Son, and Jimenez. So obviously Son was suspended. Jimenez was playing Liverpool. So I basically was trying to get into the top 10k from about 15,200. Is where I started before game week 38 came along. And my way to do that was to basically bench all my Wolves players or sell them. And just hope that Liverpool could keep a clean sheet, because although a lot of people own Liverpool defenders, not necessarily a lot of people own two of them. And I was thinking that Wolves would maybe struggle to score. They did pretty well, but obviously didn't score in the end. And then obviously Sterling would come in as kind of a blocker, and then Redmond and Wilson would be differentials, and Wilson's away form had been pretty good. In the end, he did nothing. The big mistake I made, which I'll try not to bang on about too much, I'm sure I'll still be mentioning it next season when we come to towards the end of the season, but that's a long way away, so we won't think about it too much right now. But I basically said pre-game week 38 that I was going to captain Mane because of a lot of the captain polls had Sterling and Aguero as favourites, and I thought to get into the top 10k I'll captain Salah or Mane, and I didn't have Salah, so it dropped to Mane. Because I knew that they were good options, well owned, but not going to be as highly owned, at least captain wise, in the top 10k as Man City. But in the end, I opted to block in a mini league and go for Sterling, and that cost me 10 points, and it was exactly 10 points which would have got me into the top 10k. So I'm a little bit disappointed. I did finish 12,731, so it's not bad. It goes towards my overall rank history for the last 10 years or 9 or 10 years, whatever it is now. It's a pretty good rank. I should be pleased with it, but I came so close to the top 10k, and it was just that one mistake going against my gut, which just didn't pay off. But otherwise, DFO goal was nice, but then he came off. Aguero scored, but he was so highly owned, it didn't matter. Lacazette's done nothing for me since I got him on wildcard, and then he missed the whole game. But Trent Alexander-Arnold was absolutely smashed it. And it'd be interesting to see Robertson and Trent's price next year, because Robertson's more kind of stable, you'd think, for starts, but unless they buy a left-back, of course. But actually, points per game, Trent Alexander-Arnold beat him. It's just that he didn't necessarily play as many games, so that'd be interesting. Yeah, overall points were 2,375. So you can kind of see how close you got to that, or if you beat me, which I'm sure a lot of people did. And I took 12 hits, which was 48 points. Now, I've spoken about this a lot, but interestingly, in my best ever rank, top 5k, I took 96 points worth of hits, so double what I took this season. I don't think that necessarily means anything. You can take hits and they can work out, and you can take hits and they don't. But it goes to show that I just use them when I think I need them. In the past, I would have taken hits whenever. But now I take them when I think I need them, and I took a hit this week. If I was safely in the top 10k, I wouldn't have taken a hit this week. I would have just played it safe, but I was trying to go for it. I thought it was the best way to end the season, so I ended on a green arrow. Overall, pretty happy, but yeah, let me know in the comment section how you finished in the end. So my FPL player of the season is 100% Raul Jimenez, which probably comes as no surprise to people that have watched the stream. I got him in game week 5. A lot of people were going for Ings at the time, and I remember he had a couple of tough fixtures, and plus he was going to have to miss one because he was on loan from Liverpool. And I think he played Chelsea as well in the next 4 when I was going to buy him, something like that. And Raul Jimenez had pretty good stats, although I hadn't really seen him play that much. So I bought him in instead, a little bit of a punt, see how Wolves did, and just didn't look back from there. I think from game week 5 to when I sold him in game week 38, he averaged over 5 points per game. For someone that I bought for 5.5 million, that is incredible. I think he finished on 181 points, which was only about 20 off top spot. So got really close to the likes of Aubameyang and Aguero for a lot less money. Now, obviously, there's other contenders, namely Mane for a really good price, less than Salah, and for a lot of the season he did really well. Sterling and Hazard obviously got close to Salah as well for less money, but I think Robertson probably unlucky to miss out, because first defender to ever hit 200 points, pretty much nailed every single game week, returned so many assists, obviously Trent as well, but he was a little bit a little bit less likely to start for a lot of the season, or you're always worried about Gomez. So Robertson probably a close second, but it has to be Jimenez. 5.5 million. Interesting to see what his price will be like next year and whether they sign another striker, because they didn't really have backup for him. They know they played Traore and stuff up front, but he's nowhere near the quality of Jimenez when it comes to a striker. So we'll see what they do next season. I think his price will probably be about 8 million. I don't think they can do it much more than that. Maybe 8.5, but we've got to remember they're counting on Wolves necessarily doing that again. Will they be 7th? There's people talking about them getting into top 6, but as we'll see on lessons learned in a minute, they're going to be in Europe and that could hurt their squad. So we'll see how much they reinforce it by. I think we'll see an 8.5 million price tag. I think 9 million for a Wolves player is just going to be too much, although we have seen Vardy at that price and obviously he's outside the top 6. So we'll see how it goes. But absolutely, my player of the season. Let me know in the comments below. Does anyone have a different player of the season that's not Jimenez or Robertson? Be really interested to hear it. So lessons learned is always one that people want to talk about, and I've said this a lot already in this video. But let me know in the comments below what lessons you learned this season. Now, I try and be careful with this because a lot of the times people will write a whole thread on Twitter or a video about whatever when it comes to lessons learned, and usually it will just be them saying how it was easy to win that season just gone. But obviously every season we have to adapt. The players we had in this year will be more expensive if they did well, or at least for the most part, and obviously it'd be hard to fit in. So everyone's saying they're going to double up on Liverpool twins. That's fine, and if you're happy to pay the price, then you can absolutely do it. But they could be, the likes of Robertson could be 7.5 million next year, and you might say, well, compared to a 7.5 midfielder, that's a bargain. But you've got to consider it's not just a defender versus midfielder; it's a defender plus another midfielder versus Robertson plus a midfielder. Versus a similar priced midfielder and plus a separate defender as well. And sometimes the cheaper defenders can outscore the cheaper mids, so you might want to spend your money in a different place. So I'm not saying we won't necessarily go for Liverpool players, but I just think watch out for basically your lessons learned being how to win the FPL 18-19 season, because that's been and gone now. But a few things to look out for. I suppose one that comes up a lot is teams in Europe. I think Burnley struggled at the start of the season. They came back and did a bit better in the second half of the season. We saw they had a pretty good run in 2019, but towards the start where they were playing in Europe, it was tough for them. So we'll likely see that with Wolves as well. And our Wolves probably got a bit of a stronger squad and probably going to invest some money this summer. So if they do that, they might cope better. And obviously they do get to play earlier, which kind of brings their fitness up. But I think we've seen teams struggle in the past, so I'd be a little bit concerned about Wolves. And given they're probably going to get a bit of a hefty price increase, we might have to give serious consideration to skipping them at the start of the season. So we'll see how that goes. Start big in defence. Now, this could be one of those ones where we say, well, yeah, of course, Robertson, Trent, Laporte did really well. So you're just learning from the last season. But actually, I learned from the season before. I remember, I think it was Barat who came on the Scoutcast, and he started big in defence. I think, and when he said big, it was like 4 or 5 at the back. Now, I didn't start 4 or 5 at the back. I started with 3. But I started with some pretty hefty defenders, and I think one thing I like about big defenders, especially at the start of the season, was they're pretty reliable for most of the season. You can pretty much guess when they're going to get their clean sheets. Obviously, it doesn't always work like that. But obviously, the likes of Alonso, Mendy, and Robertson started really well. So that's something I'll likely do at the start. I probably won't look for too many players who've just been promoted. I'll wait to see how they get on. And I'll try and go for some big names in defence and kind of just split my money throughout the rest of the team. And obviously the wild cards and stuff I used early this year, that could easily happen again next year. So if it goes wrong, or there's other defenders I need to get in, or suddenly there's some big hitters in attack that I need, I can easily switch out for wild cards. So after we've seen the first 3 or 4 weeks, we can take a look at that. Triple captain in a single game week. So I will absolutely try and use my triple captain in a double game week. But I think this year I've kind of gone in my head now that don't worry about if you have to use it in a single game week. We saw that Mane and Salah captainers against Fulham did really well. We saw other people using it in single game weeks and nailing it. And obviously it's still a bit of luck. You could use it on someone and they blank, and that's frustrating. Obviously I'm not disregarding double game weeks just because I failed with it this year. Obviously I did it on Sané in game week 25. He got 1 point. I could have easily gone for Aguero, who absolutely smashed it. So I'm not saying no to double game weeks, but I won't be as concerned if I am able to plan for the double game weeks around the other chips and not worry about the triple captainship. I think once you get towards the end of the season, teams are kind of down and out. They're playing defensively poor, and you've got some big hitters that are just really in good form. That might be the time to use it. So I will probably hold on to it. I don't think I'll use it early, but I won't be concerned if I don't have to use it in double game week. That doesn't mean that I won't try and use it in double game week. But on the other hand, free hit and wildcards absolutely saving for double game weeks and blanks. It was a lifesaver this year. It made planning really easy. And I'll definitely do it again. I think the double game weeks and blanks will fall slightly differently to how they did this year. So we'll see how that goes, but they're still going to be so useful, especially the free hit. It makes planning around blanks really easy. So although I didn't necessarily get the increases I wanted this year, that doesn't mean that I won't be using them again next year. And then serious consideration for cheap strikers. If you look at the kind of team, the dead teams that would have won it the last 2 years. So a lot of people put together teams that would have won FPL without making a transfer. Now, obviously, we're going to make transfers. We're trying to get the best score possible, and it's not easy to predict the team that's going to win it at the start of the season. But last year, Firmino and Vardy were the 2 strikers to have, and this year, I think it was Wilson and Jimenez. And it's very rare that the big strikers get in there because it's the midfielders that get extra points. We've seen Hazard, Sterling, and Salah smash it this year. Now, a lot will depend on whether any of those players get put as forwards this year or whether they stick to midfielders. That's something we'll have to assess at the start of next season. But I'm going to give serious consideration at the start to go for cheap strikers and just get my midfielders in. So that's my lessons learned. Let me know if you've got any others or any thoughts about what I've said. So I'm going to rattle through the predictions I made at the start of the season and go through them quickly. So I did top 6, bottom 3, as well as most assists, most clean sheets, etc. So starting with the top 6, bottom 3, we'll go with bottom 3 first. Absolutely nailed it. I think Cardiff and Huddersfield were 2 obvious picks. Fulham I wasn't quite sure about. There's obviously likes of Brighton and Southampton. I think I even mentioned Wolves as well because I wasn't sure if they would do as well as everyone said they would. They absolutely did, so I messed that up. But I got the bottom 3 spot on. Top 2 as well, Man City and Liverpool. Obviously, it came very, very close, and Liverpool did really well this season, so congratulations to them. But ultimately, you come second, you don't win anything. So hats off to Man City for back-to-back Premier Leagues. It doesn't get done too often. Obviously, the big mistake was going Man United third. A lot of people saying that's bias. I think if you look at it, even though Mourinho said it was one of his best ever achievements to finish second with that team, I wasn't expecting the kind of free fall from him, although maybe it should have been expected third season, etc. But yeah, I thought maybe we'd go from second to third. Spurs, at the time I recorded it, hadn't made any transfers, and they didn't make any. Their last transfer was January 2018 for Lucas Moura. So obviously they've coped really well. They've got top 4 and they're in the Champions League final. So I got that completely wrong. And then Chelsea and Arsenal, I just thought new managers might take a while to set in. Spurs and Man United are probably pretty consistent, and Man City and Liverpool will definitely be 1 and 2. So yeah, it was hard to guess the rest of the top 6. I think Man City and Liverpool will probably be the top 2 again next season. I don't think the rest of the teams will catch up with them just yet. I'm going to need a lot of investment. It'd be interesting to see what Spurs do in that regard. And yeah, obviously Chelsea got top 4 and Arsenal missed out. So not too good on the top 6, but nailed the bottom 3. So most clean sheets, Liverpool absolutely spot on. I just think how well they ended last season just made me think they'd be pretty close to, this year. Obviously Man City as well, close behind. But Liverpool most clean sheets, most assists and most goals, completely wrong. In the end, Mane, Salah and Aubameyang all finished top for goals, equal. Obviously Kane got injured towards the end of the season, which wasn't great. I thought Salah would regress a bit. I thought his season last year was probably hard to replicate, but obviously he did have another great season. He just set the standard so high. But in the end, Kane had a pretty poor season, so I think next year his price will probably come down. And it'll be interesting to see what fixtures Spurs start with. Obviously I said we're going to be looking at cheap strikers, but if he's priced, kind of 10.5, maybe 11, he's got nearly 200 points for 3 seasons in a row before this season, so definitely one to look at. And most assists, De Bruyne, obviously he got a massive injury for most of the season, so obviously not even anywhere near. Fraser and Hazard did really well. So it would have been interesting to see. I would have assumed De Bruyne probably would have done pretty well if he'd played the whole season like he always does. I think when he came back for one of his games, he got 3 assists, not necessarily in the league. But yeah, he's a great player, but just missed out through injury this season. So I believe when I talked about the highest scoring goalkeeper, I basically chose Ederson because, as you'll see in a minute, I chose Robertson for defender. I didn't want to choose too many Liverpool players. I would have gone for probably Alisson, but Ederson saved a couple of penalties last year, which is why his score was so high. But I just thought Man City are probably going to get clean sheets again. So if you can get a couple of penalties, he'll be right up there. In the end, he came second and Alisson came first. So didn't quite nail this one. But he still did really well, and obviously Pickford, shout out for him because he came third, and I don't think many people were expecting that. So as I said, Robertson, highest scoring defender, he absolutely smashed it. First defender to go over 200 points, even though Van Dijk did it as well this season. So obviously Liverpool defensively was so good, and even Trent, who missed a good few games, also got really close as well. So I think Robertson will probably be the prediction again next year. I don't see another defender coming in. Mendy obviously got problems. Trent, it will depend on whether he gets enough game time versus Robertson. And the likes of Alonso just not attacking enough anymore, even if they're in the team at all. So we'll see who comes in for the league next year. But Robertson absolutely smashed it. So many assists, so many clean sheets, so much bonus. I think he's going to do it all again next year. This was probably the most obvious pick of all. Obviously, he scored over 300 points last year, so I didn't quite expect him to do that again, but I also didn't think it was a complete fluke that he did so many points. Obviously, he regressed a bit. I think it was 22 goals he finished on this season, but that's still fantastic for a player who's not the only one in the team that scores goals. Obviously, Firmino and Mane really chipping in as well. So I think he'll probably be up there again next season. It'll be hard to back against him, especially if Hazard leaves to go to Real Madrid. It's probably only Sterling and maybe De Bruyne if he can stay injury free. So Salah absolutely smashed it 2 years in a row. Really hefty price tag, and he's probably going to get exactly the same next year. And last but not least was top scoring forward, and again I nailed it with Aubameyang. Obviously I went for Kane for most goals, so obviously a lot of people would probably think you should go for him for highest point scorer, but the reason I went for Aubameyang is I just think he would have chipped in with assists as well as goals, and obviously that's what happened. Plus Kane got injured, so if he wasn't injured, maybe he would have kept up. But Aubameyang, yeah, great season. He's kind of done it any time he's played in any season, even with Dortmund and stuff. He's absolutely smashed the amount of goals and assists he gets. And he's done it again for Arsenal. And a lot of people kind of say, you watch him and he looks like he's not doing anything, but he's clinical when he gets a chance. And he does set up assists as well, or creates chances as well. Now, the frustrating thing was a lot of us probably didn't own him that much this season because you just weren't sure whether Lacazette was going to start with him, whether Lacazette was starting his own. He was injured for a bit. He was ill for a bit. So he went the whole season being the top scoring forward. And was right up there for a lot of the season, but none of us could just get him in. So next year it'll be interesting to see if Lacazette's still there and so is he, which you assume they both will be, unless maybe Real Madrid come in for Aubameyang or something like that. Then Aubameyang will be right up there for the points again next year, and will probably be number one or number two for forwards if he's still there. It's just whether we can get him in or not will really depend on how confident we are that he and Lacazette will play together. Because when they're both around and available, especially around Europe and cup ties and stuff like that, it can easily be one that gets rested for the other. So pretty frustrating from an FPL point of view, but the top scorer and nice for his debut season at Arsenal. So that's it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks very much as always for watching. If you did enjoy it, hit the like on there, comment on anything I've said or any of the questions I've asked. Be much appreciated as always. Again, thanks for all your support this season. That kind of is it now. Obviously that's a wrap up season review. There are a few more videos I've got planned before FPL launches, and again I know most people don't care, but I'm trying not to let the channel completely die into FPL launch. There's a few things like what changes I would like to see. So if you've got any video ideas for stuff that can be put out before FPL launches, price predictions would be one as well. Then I'd love to hear it. I'll work on getting them done. Maybe one a week or one every 2 weeks or something like that. I just don't want to do nothing between now and July. I want to keep ticking over a little bit. Obviously, we've been building up the audience this year, so I'd like to keep going with that. Otherwise, I'm going to leave this one here. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Hope you all had a great season. We'll definitely do it all again next year. Cheers all.